So completely randomly and without warning, we just got the biggest batch of news out of absolutely nowhere that we could have gotten for Magia Exedra. So if you read the title about the reviews, yes, there are reviews out for the game right now, but the game is not out yet, okay? So some Japanese news websites for gaming, they have gotten some pre-release build of the game that they were allowed to play for a little while, and then they wrote some articles based on that. So we can now look at all of this pre-release information that we've been given. As a reminder, the game comes out on 27th of March for iOS and Android. The Steam release is going to come sometime later. We don't know. Could be months later. Who knows? But there is crossplay, so you can just start on mobile and then transfer to Steam, okay? But so yeah, we're going to take a look at all of the different websites that talk about all this information. All of these websites are in Japanese, by the way, but if you are on Google Chrome, you can have this little button on the top right of your screen that you can use to automatically translate into English in this case. So keep in mind, all these websites are actually in Japanese, but I'm automatically translating them to English just to show you what these websites are talking about. I'm also going to link every single one of these websites, or rather the reviews for all of these websites, down there in the description, so you can take a look at it yourself, and you should take a look at it yourself, because we're only going to quickly skim through all of this. I'm going to give you the most important and juiciest new information out of all of these, so you don't have to read, but you probably should read these yourself. We're going to start out right here with an article from Uplift Games, and there's a whole bunch already to talk about. So first off, when you start the game, we already kind of knew this from before. The game starts with the opening of the very first episodes of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and then it sort of cuts away and goes to the lighthouse, where you then talk to Namae and AQ, and the story sort of goes from there. But it seems like that most of the story, if not all of the main story at least, seems to be fully voiced. But I've heard another website talk about mostly voiced, so there's maybe some scenes or some places, some stories maybe, that are not entirely voiced. But there is at least already a lot of voice acting that has been put into the game, so that's pretty good. We then see a bit more of the actual gameplay. Now there's going to be a lot of screenshots and even a single video of like fights that you can see right here, and you're going to see a lot of characters. A lot of characters are going to be appearing that we didn't know about before in all of these screenshots. And I've written down for every single character how they appear, what rarity are they, what element are they, what role do they have, everything. I've marked all of it down, and at the very end of this video, I'm going to compile all of it and just read everything out to you, because I've written it all down into a list. I'm going to read the list at the end of this. But for now, let's just accept that there's going to be a lot more characters that are going to be shown right here. We're going to talk about the juicy details. In this case, the juicy details that are important is that on one hand, there's a double speed button. It is confirmed to be double speed, and not triple speed, sadly, but maybe triple speed at some point in the future, who knows. And also an auto battle button that can be either semi-automatic, where it doesn't use your Kyoko automatically, but everything else is automatic, or full auto, where it also uses your Kyoko attacks automatically, which are your big ultimate attacks. So then it also mentions something rather interesting, is that when you get to a boss battle, for example, either a mini boss or a full boss, then auto battle gets disabled for that fight. So in like tough battles, like boss battles, you do have to play manually, which might be for the better, because if the auto battle system isn't very good, it's probably good that you're not going to auto battle through bosses. That said, regular battles are going to be so easy that even a bad auto battle should have absolutely no problem making it through everything. So yeah, for difficult battles, you're gonna have to play yourself. It also mentions something called a Magia box right here. So Magia box, that does sound kind of interesting, right? But we'll get to that. For now, let's just keep in mind, Magia box is something that exists. We're gonna talk about it later. Next up, what we're gonna have talking about is the exploration section right here. So if you go into an exploration node on the world map, you'll see you walking through a witch labyrinth like this, and you're going to be on a straight path from A to B. So you're going to be tapping a button or swiping up, and your character just automatically walks through the stage, which is rather boring because it's actually automatic movement. However, there's something else about this. So while you're moving through the witch labyrinth, so that you have something to do, there will be like sparkles that pop up on the screen on the environment. So you'll have to be looking around, move your camera around, maybe also automatically moves the camera around for you, and you're going to have to keep tapping on the sparkles on the screen to get more items. which you could also just not do if you don't want to do it. But if you want some bonus items, which probably will just be like a handful amount of coins or whatever, or it might just be some random enhancement materials, but like really low rarity materials, I assume, you can just keep tapping on the screen whenever these sparkles appear, and you have at least something to do while your character moves through the labyrinth. And on top of that, you get to look around the labyrinth, and these are quite detailed environments that have been specifically created for this game. So there's also going to be witch labyrinths in here from witches that weren't actually shown anywhere in the anime or in Magia Record or in any place. Maybe we've only seen like a familiar or a minion of a witch, but now we get the actual witch itself with their labyrinth, which is going to be pretty exciting. So there's a lot of interesting places that we're going to visit that you're going to be taking a look at. And like I said, if you want to have something to do while your character moves, tap the sparkles. Then next up, what do we have? We have something rather interesting, this menu right here. So this is an overview of the different characters that you have. And you'll see that every single character that is in the game will have an entry in here. And when you go into a character's menu, we're going to get to a different menu that I'm going to show you later. It's not actually in here, the menu that you go to from here, but you will, through that menu, be able to basically read that character's story. So every character in the game has their own story, which is something that also was the case with Magia Record. In Magia Record, also, every single character had their own story. It was called the Mahou Shoujo story, or the MSS for short. And it seems this is also the case in this game. Every single character has their own, at least 3-part story that you can take a look at. And playing through that story also unlocks some stuff for you, but we'll get to that later, because this website doesn't actually go in depth on that many places, but there are other websites that do, so hold on to those thoughts for now. Also, something else to note, stamina system at the very top of the screen here. So this is the home screen, right? And if you go look at the top here, there is a stamina system that seems to be used for extra rewards on some battles. Now keep in mind, Magia Record also had a stamina system, and to be fair, after playing the game for like a month or so, the stamina system wasn't really that important anymore, right? Like, it's only at the very, very beginning of the game, like in the very first 1 or 2 weeks that you played the game, that you might feel a bit stamina starved, but that's what stamina refill items are for. And after that, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal anymore, at least if it's like a Magia Record. And there's also not just this review right here, but also other reviews that talk about the fact that apparently in this game, farming seems to be very easy. Like, this game seems to be very light, very low on time investment, and it's probably rather simple to actually get all the stuff you need. So it seems like the stamina system is probably not going to be that big of a deal. So keep all of that in mind. We also see down here this little box that has like the timer above it and a 4%. That's the Magia box. And once again, we're going to talk about that later when another review actually opens the menu for the Magia box. And then we have another menu right here which shows you a character's Kyoko, or like a Kyoko is the unit. So this is just Homura, the 5-star unit in this case. And you can see on the right, she has her Kyoko attack, which is level 1 out of 10 right now, costs 90 MP, which is the full bar, and then does some stuff, does some damage, buffs, a whole bunch of other stuff, and then her skill, which also buffs herself, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But more importantly, keep in mind, you can level these. So you can level the Kyoko, you can level the skill, you can level the normal attack, you can level the passive ability, and you can level something called the support ability, which I don't know what it is. I don't know what the difference is between ability and support ability. And none of the reviews talked about it, so either it's something so simple that it doesn't have to be talked about, or it's something that isn't in the game yet. Like, I don't know. Keep that in mind for later, because I don't know yet what that really is supposed to be. But yeah, you can level various aspects of the character in here, and we're going to see the menu for that also way later. We're going to have to aggregate some information from different reviews right here. So after that, we have a different review from a site called Kami Game, and this site talks about some other stuff. So next up, this website shows us this screen right here, which is a similar screen than we saw before. So we were on the same screen, but on the other screen we were on the skill tab right here on the right, while now we're on the left tab, which is just the general stat overview. And we see the stats. We have HP, we have attack, we have defense, and we have speed. And we can see that Odiko seems really, really slow, because 96, wow, that's so little, wow. So yeah, there is a speed stat that determines how fast you go in battle, and of course, if you have more speed, you get more turns. awesome. We want as many turns as possible, so I'm not going to play Oriko probably because she seems slow. We also see these little weird, like 4-leaf clovers or whatever they are, like these little stars, 5 of them, and it seems like these are dupes. So these fill up when you get dupes of the character. So right here we've gotten 1 Oriko. If we were to pull another Oriko from the gacha, one of these stars would fill up. Now what happens when we get a dupe? I don't know. This is the only review that actually showed this, and they didn't explain what that actually did. They only said that apparently it allows you to break limits, but what limit? Is it the limit on your level? Is it the limit on your spirit enhancement, which we'll get to in a second? We don't really know what limit they're actually talking about here, so we still don't quite know exactly what dupes for characters actually do. But we probably will on the 24th when you get the next piece of news. So what else does this review show us? It shows us this screen right here, and this screen is a rather interesting screen because this is apparently the archive, or the gallery in this case. And it is like the archive in Magia Record, where you just have a selection of all the character Kyokus, of all the portraits, of all the characters themselves, of the witches, of the witch labyrinths, and you can just go in here and just look at stuff. Like you want to look at a witch, you can do that. You want to just look at the environment, awesome, go in here, go into the gallery, check that stuff out. So this is the place where you can look at all of this stuff that you've seen before. Awesome. By the way, I didn't mention this, but the very first review also mentioned something called a heart vessel or a heart container or something like that. And this is something that's going to come up very soon. So we have the next review that is from a game website called Game With, which sadly doesn't show us anything new that we haven't seen on the other 2 websites before. So I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go to the next one, which is Automaton Media. And Automaton Media continues talking about this heart vessel, this heart container thing. And apparently what this sort of thing is it's a place where you can put materials into a character and it unlocks stuff for you. It unlocks stories, and by playing these stories you can then unlock portraits. Okay, which is still rather vague, and sadly this review doesn't talk too much more about it, but at least now we know we can gather materials, put them in our characters, and this unlocks more character stories for us. And these materials, importantly enough, are limited per day. So every day you get these special heart vessel materials that you put into a character, but you have to decide which characters you want to put those materials in, and then you unlock the stories for that character. So I'm going to explain this a bit more in detail when we get to the later parts, because this is something that has been in Magia Record before in a different way. But of course, if you haven't played Magia Record before, then anything that I just explained to you is basically how that system works, right? This review also mentioned something called the battle mode, where more difficult enemies appear, which I assume is going to be a place where you can gather materials more easily. So if you want to gather character rank up materials to upgrade them, to give them more levels, for example, or give them spirit enhancement, which we're going to get to in a second, then you can do that in battle mode, but battle mode is going to be a lot more difficult depending on how high level you are. So the higher level you are, you can fight more difficult enemies, but you gain more materials back. It's like in Magia Record, the labyrinth, basically. And also they mentioned something that there's basically a hard mode for the story. So if you've played for the story and it was too easy for you, you can then play for the story again in hard mode, which they call nightmare mode. But yeah, it's just hard mode. Magia Record also had a hard mode after you beat the story, so it's basically going to be the exact same thing, right? We'll talk about Union and Player Match, which they couldn't do in the review because these are multiplayer features, and of course, if they have a pre-release build, they're not going to be able to do multiplayer features. So there's nothing new about that in here, sadly. Next up, we have a review from Gamer, just Gamer, that's what the website is called, and yeah, it talks about mostly the same stuff, but it does mention something rather interesting. Hold up, where is it? There it is. It mentions this interface right here, and I think we've seen the same interface before basically already. Yeah, this is it right here. This is the same interface, but you can see that the speed of this Iroha is quite a lot higher. Okay, so I said earlier, Oriko seems to be rather slow, and that's simply because I compared it to this Iroha, who is a lot faster, so she's going to be able to get a lot more turns. But something else that I didn't note to you guys last time is this right here. You can see that it's like Name's face right here, and a level 11. And you can see right on the left, it says level 10 out of level 11. And this review talked about something interesting, which is that your maximum level for each character is bounded by how high your account level is, right? So when you play through the game, you do the main story, you do event stories, you do side stories, you do all kinds of content. Whenever you do anything, you gain experience for your account. I think for main story, you only get experience for the very first time you beat a new stage, but it's more. The more and more of these stages you beat, you get more account experience, your account levels up, like it does in most gacha games, and the higher your account level is, the higher your characters can be. So you can't immediately level each character to like the maximum level, with like level 100 or whatever, I don't know. So you actually need to keep playing the game to unlock higher and higher levels for all of your characters. There are a bunch of gacha games in the past that have done stuff like this. Ghost Frontline 2 very recently just came out, also had the very exact same system. So this is a system that basically just makes sure that you're not immediately over leveling and that you're actually playing with and engaging with the game before completely making everything trivial, right? So that's something important to note right here. Next up, we have the home screen again, and you can see all of this stuff right here. There's something else though. I think I didn't show it right here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, right here. There's also the very same interface for portraits, right? So we had the interface that shows that we can increase the levels of our characters right here, but also we can increase the levels of our portraits. And this is rather interesting what happens right here, is you also see these like 4-leaf cloves or whatever, these stars, flowers for dupes. But I think in this case, you don't actually increase the levels of this with dupes. It seems like there might be other ways of increasing the power of your portraits. There are some open questions here though, because I can tell you right now, across all of these reviews, none of them mention how to get more portraits. Some of them mention that, oh, by playing the story, you can gain some portraits. Others say, oh, you can gain some personal portraits through character stories, okay? But outside of these, like, portraits that you get for just playing the game, how do you get more? We don't know. That hasn't actually been shown yet. So it's possible that some portraits can be upgraded through playing the game. Other portraits can be upgraded through dupes. We don't really know. There's still some open questions here. So even though we had people actually play the game now, there still are some open questions because, like I said, this is a pre-release build. It's not going to have everything in it that the full game has in it. So some stuff may be missing or not be fully completed. And the portrait system for dupes and how to increase the power here may be one of those things that may not be exactly like the way it is going to be in the full release game. So keep all of this in mind. Okay, that was that. Next up, we have a review from Inside, which also sadly doesn't show us anything new, so we're gonna skip that one and go to a review from a site called Game Watch. So this is a site called Game Watch, and in here, what we'll see is they showed a bit more of the overworld. So this is the overworld where you select your battle basically when you go through the story, and they mentioned something right here. There's different nodes on the overworld. One of these is a battle node, which is when you click on it, a battle happens. Another one is an exploration node. When if you click on that, you go into a labyrinth, like you've seen earlier, and then you walk around the labyrinth, do all that kind of stuff. And there's also going to be fights within the labyrinth, maybe a boss fight at the end of one. And then the third one is something called a recollection node, which I assume are just story nodes, but the review didn't really mention exactly what those nodes were. So I assume it's story node, like a node that just has story in it, right? That's probably what that is my assumption. And yeah, this is also the review that then talked a little bit later on as you go through the individual exploration sections, that yes, you will also gain some portraits just by playing through the main story, but I assume you can only gain each portrait once, so you can't farm it repeatedly, but you will at least be guaranteed to have some portraits on your account just by playing the game, right? The game just gives you some here and there. It also mentions that you can unlock some pieces of music So there's a music gallery where you could just go in and listen to music from the game and from, I assume, the franchise, so that's pretty cool. Next up, we then have probably the most important review out of this entire thing from 4Gamer. So the actual review itself, the written review right here, doesn't mention anything new from what we've already seen so far, what we've already talked about, but this review came with something rather interesting. It came with a video, okay? So I'm not going to play the video directly because it probably might get me in trouble with copyright, so I'm going to just show some stills from this. So it just goes through a single battle. If you want to watch this battle for yourself, every single one of these reviews is linked in the description of this video. And if I, for some reason, can't link it because YouTube decides to be stupid and doesn't want to allow external links, you can go to the Exedra Discord, which is definitely linked below. And in the Exedra Discord, there's a channel called Exedra News. And in Exedra News, at the time of making this video, the newest post should have a link to every single one of these. So you go to the 4Gamer article, and then right here you have at the very top of the video, you can just press the YouTube link right here, and there's the YouTube video. You can watch it right here. Okay. So in this video, I'm gonna note a bunch of stuff that I've seen from just watching the video, but definitely do watch the entire video in its entirety yourself. So we're gonna see a team right here that is comprised of Yachio, Ren, Karin, Hazuki, and Yuma right here. And you can also see the roles. We have an attacker, debuffer, breaker, buffer, and healer. Very nice team actually. This team actually works pretty well in this instance. So whoever's playing this, they seem to have some idea on what they want to actually do in this game compared to some other reviews I've seen where the teams don't really seem to make sense, but it's just a review, so it doesn't really matter that much. So what I'm going to note is, I'm going to note what these characters actually seem to be doing. So I think we're going to start with Ren right here. She uses her skill. And when she uses her skill, she does an AoE attack against all enemies, which inflicts them with a dot, like a damage over time effect, that seems to be doing very low damage, so it doesn't really seem to be doing that much. It also applies a debuff down, and you can see on the enemies, or rather in this case this is the enemy at the very top that is currently selected, has the damage over time effect, which is these like slice marks, and next to that a defense down debuff that Ren has inflicted right here. You also see on Ren's portrait there's this like a 1 out of 5. That is a special passive ability that Ren has, because every character has a passive ability, and in this case Ren has a passive ability where what we're going to be seeing is that every single time an enemy takes damage, she will gain a charge. And whenever she reaches 5 charges, when I skip ahead a little, you can see that she's building charges because the enemy is being hit in this. Whenever she reaches 5 charges, she automatically does an automatic follow-up attack against multiple enemies that does a bunch of damage and inflicts more defense down. And this defense down seems to stack, by the way. So yeah, whenever enemies get hit, Ren seems to build charge, and when she gets 5 charges, she releases all of them to deal a follow-up damage against every single enemy. Nice. Also stacks defense up, really good. Also makes her already a pretty good character because she doesn't need to use skill points to make that happen, and characters that don't need to use skill points are extremely good. So Ren already seems like a really good character for being able to stack defense down and do AoE damage without requiring skill points. Really good. So I'm definitely gonna be a Ren main. Who's surprised? I was a Ren main already kind of in my record, so things stay the same, right? Next up, what else do we see with another character? We have Yuma right here. Yuma is a extremely simple character and is probably going to be one of the not so great characters because all it seems she has is an AoE heal. So she's going to be healing 3 characters at once in this. But the thing is, I can tell you from my experience with Staria that characters that only do a single thing, or rather defensive characters that only do a single thing, are usually going to get outclassed very quickly. So it's, from what I've seen in this video, the only thing Yuma does is heal 3 people at once and then do normal attacks. We didn't get to see her Kyoku attacks, sadly. But her heal doesn't seem to do anything else other than heal, which is going to be good for the early game, it's going to be good for the mid game, but in the late game I assume if another healer comes around that not just heals but also maybe does a buff, maybe does a defensive buff, for example, maybe does a debuff to the enemy, maybe is able to heal without using skill points, right? As soon as you have a healer that can do more than just healing on a skill point, they're going to be better than Yuma. At least what I can see right here. This is just speculation from a pre-review battle, so keep all of this with like a giant grain of salt. But so far we haven't actually seen a 5-star healer, so if there's no 5-star healer in the game, Yuma might still be a really good choice for a healer. We're gonna have to see for that. But yeah, Yuma seems to be at least rather boring. Kind of like a Magia Exedra, where she doesn't really do much. It seems like she also doesn't actually do that much in this game. But like I said, we also haven't seen her Kyoku. Maybe her Kyoku is actually fucking goated. We don't know. Next up, a really important character comes up. Maybe they've already come up and I've skipped them. I don't think I have. Okay. So another character that comes up, rather importantly, right here. It's Karin. Oh, Karin, one of our favorite characters right here, Karin. She just does a single target attack against the enemy with her skill point, where she just does a bunch of damage and does a bunch of damage to the break gauge. And that's all it seems to do. I feel like there's something else that this attack is supposed to do, because there's a lot of like, she poses dramatically, and then after the attack her character flashes for a second. So it seems like this ability is supposed to do something else, but it doesn't. I don't know what's happening here. Maybe something hasn't been implemented yet, or there's something that only happens on a specific condition. Maybe there's a conditional attached to that ability that simply didn't trigger in this case. We don't know. I will need to actually see the skill description to see what it's actually supposed to do. But it seems like right now the skill just does a bunch of damage and damages the break gauge a little. Because as you can see, the enemy right here on the symbol, it's weak to fire because it has the fire symbol on it. And Karin is a fire character. And since she's a fire character, her attacks reduce the enemy break gauge because it's weak to fire. And because Karin is a breaker, she reduces it by even more than a normal character would, because breakers are supposed to do really high break damage. So yeah, that's what she does. She doesn't really seem to do anything else. Next up we have Yachio. Yachio is also not really that interesting, like concept-wise, because she just does an ability that does a bunch of damage against the enemy. And that's about it. So her attack actually breaks the enemy, which is kind of interesting because the enemy isn't weak to water. So either her attack always reduces break gauge by a little, or there's something else going on here. I'm not entirely certain. But yeah, she just does a bunch of damage to the enemy. The skill, by the way, also buffed her own crit rate, either crit rate or crit damage. So she buffs herself whenever she uses her skill. That's a really nice way of giving her a bit more momentum. And something else happens. When the enemy gets broken, Karin gained a speed up buff. So my idea is that Karin's passive seems to be that whenever any enemy gets broken, she gains a speed up buff, which is a pretty good passive because speed is pretty good in this game. Or rather, generally in a turn-based game, speed is pretty important, right? So that at least seems to be something that Karin can do that other characters might not be able to do. Next up, this is where it gets super fucking interesting. If you know Honkai Star Rail, she's Bronya. She's straight up Bronya. Okay, so what she does, and this is the crazy part, she uses a skill point and then uses her skill on another ally. And what this does, I think using it on Ren here was kind of a waste, but she takes someone else's turn and moves it to be the next turn. So for example, right here, you see how in the turn order on the very left, Yachio's turn is really far down. Like it's gonna take a really, really long time for Yachio's turn to come up. However, if Hazuki were to use her skill on Yachio, she would take Yachio's turn and move it up to the very top so that Yachio gets the next turn. And on top of that, Hazuki also applies a damage up buff to that character. Now, this is something that Bronya in Star Rail does, and Bronya is one of the best characters in the game, has been for like over 2 years, and the only character that has like surpassed her is another character who also can pull characters' turns up. Like that is such an extremely powerful mechanic that any character who has it is immediately top tier. And Hazuki having it, it's possible that Hazuki is already going to be a top tier character just because she can advance other characters' turns. So that's something definitely to look out for. So yeah, she advances Ren's turn here, which is already her next turn, so it does nothing, sadly. But at least it gives her like a damage up. Okay, so she used that to attack, blah blah. Then the enemies attack a bit, and then we actually get to see Ren's Kyoku, which is just her ultimate attack, where it seems like she does damage to like 3 different enemies at once. Her Soul Salvation, I think this is Soul Salvation, let me read this. I think this is Soul Salvation. Okay, so she uses Soul Salvation, blah blah, does a bunch of damage to all of these enemies that it hit 3 enemies. And you can see that it also inflicted a debuff. This debuff is damage taken up. So not only does she inflict defense down, she also inflicts damage taken up. So multiple ways of shredding enemy defense, really nice. She also hit multiple enemies, which gave her enough charge for another follow-up attack. So she does another follow attack right after this, which also decreases the enemy defense even more. It keeps stacking up here. She seems really good. I'm just gonna say, Ren seems really good. She did all of this without having to use skill points. That sounds pretty powerful, right? By the way, you gain skill points by just normal attacking. So every character can either normal attack on their turn, or they can use their skill on their turn. Skill costs a skill point, normal attack gains a skill point. So a character like Ren, who is really powerful without needing to use her skill, you can just have her keep normal attacking to build skill points, and then characters like Hazuki and Yachio, they can use up those skill points to be really, really powerful. So that's already looking pretty good. This is why I said this team actually works pretty well. Like, this team is actually pretty well thought out. It's not being played very well here. Like, it's being rather suboptimally played, but that's beside the point. Like I said, this is just a pre-release review. It doesn't matter if it's being optimal. Okay, let's be honest about it. It's really just supposed to show up some stuff. So yeah, so this is what happens. And I think we see another Kyoku after this, because Karin gains enough points for her Kyoku. And it's just a big attack that she uses right here. And I think that's all it does. I think it's just a big attack. And this attack breaks an enemy, which gives her another speed up. Interestingly enough, Yachio gets another crit up. And I think what happens here is that Yachio's passive may be, or rather Yachio's portrait, I think it's actually her portrait, that makes her get crit damage up whenever an enemy dies. I'm not sure about this, there's maybe some weird part, but I think this might be a portrait, because I think I've also seen her passive somewhere, and I think her passive is that whenever anyone on the team crits, she gains bonus MP for a Kyoku gauge. So her Kyoku gauge rises whenever someone crits. I think this is what her passive is, I'm not quite sure. We need to see all of this in game, okay? That is what happens here. So yeah, let's see what else happens. I think this is what happens for the most part. I think Hazuki also used a Kyoku at some point. Yeah, Hazuki also used a Kyoku. I'm not sure where it was. But yeah, there it is. Use a Kyoku, which is Thundertorn, I think. Yeah, Thundertorn. Same thing as a Magia Record. And I think it just did a bunch of damage and then buffed everyone with attack up. You know, attacker buff to everyone else. That sounds pretty powerful. I mean, Hazuki's gonna be great, right? Okay, after this, I think, okay, this was Karin's Kyoku, and then Yachio comes in. She also uses a Kyoku to finish off the enemy. We've seen a Kyoku already in the other video, like pre-release video that came out like, oh god, it was like multiple weeks ago. The one that showed off Masara and Kokoro, it was like multiple weeks ago. It was like a really long time ago. But yeah, we already have seen her Kyoku. It just does a bunch of damage. And that's it, it just ends the fight. Now, I mentioned something a lot earlier, where I said like there might be other ways of increasing the levels of portraits, and I think this is it, because after this fight, you can see in the drop table is a Kyoku, is a portrait. And when this portrait drops, it then quickly cuts to another screen for just like 5 frames, like for just a handful of frames, it cuts to this, where it shows a portrait gaining a dupe level. So I assume that there are just simply some portraits that can be upgraded by doing special stories for them. This might have been one of them. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to just take a look at what happens in game to see what happens there. But yeah, that was the video for this. Awesome. Well, like I said, check it out yourself to really take it all in for yourself. So that was all of that. Next up, we have a review from Dengeki, a pretty big site, and they talk about only one more interesting thing, but it might be like the most interesting thing out of everything so far. Like the last big interesting thing, maybe. Okay, maybe like the last 2 or 3. Oh my god, there's a lot more interesting things on here on my list. Oh my god, so much stuff left. Okay, this right here. They showed this screen. No one else showed the screen. And this is the Spirit Enhancement. Now, if you've played Magia Record, Spirit Enhancement, you already know what that is. Spirit Enhancement is a mechanic where you can give resources to a character and then you can unlock bonuses for that character. In this case, or rather in the case of Magia Record, you had 100 nodes that you can activate with materials for a character, and they would give that character various passive bonuses. It would give them more special effects. It would upgrade some of their stuff, so they would just generally just become more varied and just stronger characters by using Spirit Enhancement. And in here, you have Spirit Enhancement with 120 nodes. So that's 20 more nodes than we had in Magia Record, so it's a better system, right? So what Spirit Enhancement in this case does is you use these materials, these rainbow orbs, rainbow shards, whatever they are. You need like 50 of them per level, it seems, and some money, it seems. And by putting these materials in, you then unlock a node. There's 120 nodes to unlock in total, and each of these nodes seems to give you something different. The first one seems to give, in this case, for this character, it seems to give 100 HP. The next node seems to give 36 attack, and then there's 36 defense, and 100 HP again, right? And there's going to be some other bonus special effects that are going to happen later. And you can see on the bottom left right here the stats that are actually going to be increasing through the system. You have HP, you have attack, you have defense that's going to be increasing, all this normal stuff. Not speed though. It seems like you can't gain speed through Spirit Enhancement, which I think is very important, because speed tuning may be important for the game's balancing, and speed tuning is called basically a play style, or like a team building style, where you make sure that all of your characters' speed values line up in the exact same way as you want. Like maybe you want Hazuki to act after your DPS, so you have the DPS acting, then directly afterwards Hazuki, because then Hazuki can give the DPS who just acted their turn back, so that DPS can gain another turn, right? That's called speed tuning. But that in order to do that, Hazuki needs to have 1 speed less than the DPS. So you might want to have Yachu have like 113 speed and Hazuki like 112 speed. But with Spirit Enhancement, that would mess everything up if Spirit Enhancement gave speed. So some people would just not unlock Spirit Enhancement to not mess with speed tuning. So that's probably why the developers didn't put speed nodes in here, is my guess at least. At least it doesn't show speed nodes. What it does show is crit rate and crit damage. So you can get crit rate and crit damage, at least for this character, through Spirit Enhancement. It's possible that Spirit Enhancement is able to give different things for different characters. Maybe there's a character who wants to be extremely fast. Like Karen seems to be a speed demon, so maybe Karen actually does gain speed from her Kyoku, but because Karen doesn't need to be speed tuned because she doesn't care, for her it might not matter. So who knows? Also very interesting enough, down here you see levels for skill for your for your battle skill, for your passive ability, for your normal attack, and for your support ability, which once again, I don't know what support ability does. I haven't shown it. We don't know what it is. But yeah, so you can upgrade also your character's abilities through Spirit Enhancement, as well as through another screen that we're going to see in a second. So yeah, you're going to get various bonuses for updating your Spirit Enhancement, which makes your characters a lot stronger. So that's like the primary way in which you will be upgrading your character. So that's it for this. The next review comes from Famitsu App. Famitsu App. And what they're talking about, they're showing us a bunch more screen that we haven't seen in other reviews. And one of the most important things that they're showing is they're showing us the screen for the box, the Magia box. So on your home screen, there's this box that keeps ticking up every hour. And what this does is this box just generates passively a little bit of money and a little bit of level up materials. So even if you're not playing the game, or even while you're playing the game, this box is going to keep just generating some materials for you. So you gain coins, you gain level up materials that you can collect every now and then. It's just a small trickle of income that apparently the higher your level is, the more of this income you gain. So even if you're not playing the game, even if you're taking a break from the game for a little while, as long as you keep tapping that box every time it's full, you're still going to be able to get some resources. So that's interesting. If you are actively playing the game, I assume it's not going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, it's a pretty nice thing to have. Another thing that it shows is another screen right here that for some reason no other review showed. This is the review. This is the screen for actually upgrading your levels, the levels of your skills, and this may be the thing. Like the only thing, maybe the only thing, we're not sure, that upgrading your dupes do. So if you have, for example, earlier we showed Oriko, which had like no dupes, and I theorized about what could happen if you gain dupes for Oriko. And at least one of the things that we could gain is right here, it shows you a symbol of the dupes, and then it shows an unlock. And then you can see right here, this is the level, in this case, for her skill. For someone's skill. I don't think this is Oriko. So in this case, I think this is Mito. In this case, you can only upgrade the skill to level 3, it seems like. And once it's level 3, you cannot upgrade the skill any further until you gain dupe 3. So this would be 3 dupes. So a grand total of 4 Mitos. So if you have a grand total of 4 Mitos, you can then keep upgrading the skill to level, what is this, like 6 or something? Maybe 7. I'm not sure where exactly the points lie in here. The screenshot, I'm sorry, is very low quality. The website just didn't have a high quality screenshot of here. But yeah, maybe the first mark might be at level 4, and this is level 7. And you would need a full 5 dupes, so a grand total of 6 meters, to then be able to upgrade the skill all the way to level 10. So this might be one of the things, maybe the only thing that dupes do. We're not sure. I think it's not the only thing, because it would be kind of weird to only have an effect at 3 dupes and at 5 dupes and no effect on 1, 2, or 4 dupes. That would be kind of weird. So I assume there's still other things that the dupe system does that we just don't know. So that's something to keep in mind. But you also need the scrolls. I haven't seen where these scrolls come from. I assume it's battle mode, because it said that battle mode is like an end game mode where you just fight some strong enemies to gain materials for upgrading your character. I assume this might be one of those materials you gain from there. Next up, and this is something that I mentioned way earlier, at the very beginning, even on the very first review that we talked about, the heart vessel or heart container thing, that a lot of these reviews mention the heart vessel, but none of them actually show it. Which, while reading these reviews, made me a little bit angry that none of these reviews actually show the heart vessel system, even though almost all of them talk about it. Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about it. What is the heart vessel system? It's the episode level from Magia Record. So Magia Record, whenever you use a character in battle, they gain episode points. And after certain amounts of episode points, their episode level levels up. And the higher their episode level, the more of their magical girl story you can play. So every character has their own story, their Mahou Shoujo story, their MSS. And the higher their episode level, the more of this MSS you can play. And through this MSS, you could also unlock their unique Memoria, which is a Memoria that was just for that character in Magia Record. And now, in Exedra, we have the Heart Vessel level. And you upgrade the Heart Vessel level, and after certain levels, you unlock more of that character's MSS, right? So here's Karin. Her current heart level is at 3 out of 50. And she has unlocked the first 2 of her episode 0 and episode 1 of her MSS, okay? So you can play those, and you can see it shows you a little symbol at the right that shows you, hey, you haven't played this one yet. If you play this for the very first time, you gain some Magia Stones, which is also the case in Magia Record. So you want to do the story for every character so you at least gain Magia Stones, right? And this is what their system is. However, they've said, and I've said this earlier before, is that some of these reviews talked about the materials required for upgrading your heart vessel level is limited. So in Magia Record, like I said, you only had to have the character in your party while you battle, and they gain episode level. But in here, that's not the case. Now you actually need to give them a special material to upgrade the heart vessel level. And this material to upgrading the heart vessel is limited every day. They're saying it's easy to get this material, but you can only gain so much every day. So every day you'll have to decide, who are you going to give these materials to? I'm going to give it to Ren, of course I'm going to give it to Ren, and then Karin afterwards, so keep that in mind. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So you can decide which characters you want to first experience their story for, and more importantly, when the heart vessel levels up, some of the reviews mentioned that they only gain bonus stats, also gain bonus stats. Not quite sure if that's actually the case because there's no stats showing on screen, but it seems there's some other bonuses you gain as well from upgrading the heart vessel level. And more importantly, when you unlock more of their story, some of their stories will give you the special character portrait. So just like the personal memoria for a character in Magia Record, now in Exedra, every character has their own special personalized portrait that only that character can equip. And you gain those portraits from going into the heart vessel system, upgrading their heart vessels, and then playing through their story, you gain the special portrait, and then by playing through more of their story, you can then upgrade that portrait further and further to make it even more powerful. Right, that's going to be basically the system for that. And I assume that some of these personal memorias are going to be pretty powerful, pretty strong for those characters, so it seems like a pretty good incentive to grab them and then upgrade them. One of the reviews mentioned that apparently it doesn't take that much heart vessel level to get the first portrait, but it takes a lot more to then upgrade the portrait. So it seems like it might be a good strategy to simply gain the portrait for every single character first that you're going to use, and only then tunnel deep into one of the characters. Okay, that's not weird. So that might be a strategy you might be using. Okay. So yeah, that's basically the heart battle system in a nutshell that is showing right here. And it also seems that you can get the character voices. So the voice responses you can take a look at, similar to how you could in Magia Record. Just have a menu where you can check, oh, what character voice happens when I tap on the character? What character voice happens when the character uses their Kyoko, for example, all of that stuff. Just like in Magia Record or in a lot of other gacha games out there as well. It's nothing really that new, to be fair. Next up, the last bit of information. We're almost there, but for some reason it took until the 11th review to talk about maybe one of the biggest questions that everyone had, which is the actual gacha system. Yes, it took us 11 reviews out of 12 to talk about the actual gacha system. By the way, this review is from Famitsu. I know I just said the other review was from Famitsu app, but apparently Famitsu app and Famitsu are two different websites. I mean, they're still both Famitsu. It's just that apparently they have two different sections. I don't know why. And there's only one more review after this, which is from Game 8, and Game 8 doesn't have any more new information. So this right here is the last bit of new information, and it is extremely important. How did this not come up before? What? I've already been making this video for such a long time, and it's going to be more because this is what? How did it take until 11? Okay, so what this shows us is this is the result of a gacha roll, okay? And we can see right here, first up, by the way, it seems like it gains some materials for just rolling the gacha, which I think every gacha nowadays has a system like this, where just by rolling the gacha, you gain some points, which you can go into a special shop to spend those points on like pity rewards. It seems to be something like this, but none of the reviews talked about it, so I'm just speculating. But yeah, so here we see the results. You see it. Oh, we gain a 5-star. We gain a SSR 5-star. We gain a 5-star Felicia. So Felicia is a 5-star character, right? We then see some 3-star characters. Right here, for example, we got a Rico 3-star. We then also gain some 4-star characters. Like we got a 4-star Masara down here. Awesome. So does that mean that Ashley is a 3-star character? No. Ashley is a 4-star character. But she's also a 3-star character. So this is where it gets interesting. And this is something that I've also picked up on just by looking at all of the other reviews, but none of them specifically talked about it. So the thing is with these rarities is that you have basically two brackets of rarities. You have the high rarity bracket and you have the low rarity bracket. The high rarity bracket is just 5-star. So in this case, Felicia is a high rarity bracket character. She exists as a 5-star character. And it seems like, at least I've not found anything that contradicts this, it seems like she only exists as a 5-star character currently. Like I said, this might be contradicted at some point, but it seems like so far she only has a 5-star version of herself. Then we have the low rarity bracket. And in the low rarity bracket, every single character that is in the low rarity bracket, which Felicia is, and she's in high rarity bracket, every single character in that bracket has both a 3-star and a 4-star version. So Masada is a low rarity bracket character, which means that she has both a 3-star and a 4-star version. In this case, we gain the 4-star version. But it's also possible we could have gained her 3-star version as well. Maybe in the same role even, who knows? So in this case, for example, we've gained, for example, like I said earlier, we have a 3-star Rico, but we could have also gained a 4-star Rico, right? Because they're low rarity bracket, and every character in the low rarity bracket, like Rico, has both a 3-star and a 4-star version of herself. So the question then becomes, what's the difference then between the 3-star and the 4-star version? Does the 3-star version upgrade into the 4-star version? No. As far as we don't. No, that's not the thing. They really are two separate characters. You can think of it like alts. Like seasonal alts, like swimsuit Iroha or whatever. Just in this case, it's not regular Iroha and swimsuit Iroha. It's like 3-star Rico and 4-star Rico, right? They seem to be different characters, or different Kyoko, basically. Are there some carryovers between the two? We don't know, right? But here's another important thing, is what these characters are might change between the 3-star and the 4-star version. Here's an example. We have Masara right here. In 4-star, her 4-star version is a void attacker. But we also have seen another screenshot, her 3-star version, and it's a light attacker. So she's light as a 3-star, but her 4-star version is void. That's interesting, but they're both attackers at least, right? So it seems like the role stays the same, right? No, we've seen with it, I think it's, with Rika. Rika on 3-star is we actually have it right here. Rika on 3-star is a flame attacker, but her 4-star is a flame buffer. We've also seen, by the way, Kako, who on 3-star is a forest attacker, and we haven't seen her 4-star yet, but I bet my butt her 4-star is either a buffer or a healer. So yeah, characters could be completely different between the 3-star and the 4-star version. And the 4-star version seems to always be better. So you might be wondering, if the 4-star version is always better, why do they have a 3-star version? Well, because otherwise you don't have trash to gum up your gacha rolls, right? When you roll the gacha, you need to have trash that just pops out the gacha, and I guess that's just the 3-star versions. Another important thing, 3-star Kyokus cannot use a Kyoku attack. They don't have a Kyoku gauge, so they cannot use a Kyoku attack. And that seems to just be an intentional part of 3-star characters. That means that if you want to do challenge runs, if you want to do like a low rarity challenge run, it becomes a lot harder than it would have been in Magia Record, because now you really have just 3-star characters that cannot use a Kyoku attack. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, so basically you always want to use the 4-star version of every character, because that's basically the character as it is intended to be played. Now, does that mean that Masada, for example, could have a 5-star version? Maybe, I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. Currently, it seems like there's a really hard cut between these characters only exist in low rarity and these characters only exist in high rarity, and there's no between the two. But like I said, maybe it's going to change at some point, who knows. So, that's basically it for all of the information. Now that most of the video is over, first I want to say, there's going to be so much more video coming, especially when the release draws even closer. I've more videos than I have time to make before the game comes out, and then when the game comes out, I've even less time to do even more videos. So I don't know how I'm gonna manage all of that. But yeah, if you want to keep watching all this stuff, please hit that subscribe button. But as I said earlier in the video, the last thing I want to do is I want to actually go through the list of all of the characters that have been shown off in all of these screenshots and just compile them all. And I've compiled them all into the Discord, but I'm basically just gonna open the Discord right now and just go through the list right there. If you don't want to just go through the list, you want to just read the list yourself, you can just do that. So yeah, you can just do that. Oh, this is better. There you go. So yeah, you can just do that on the Discord instead. It's just on the Exedra, Magia Exedra Discord in a channel called Exedra Guides Tips. So yeah, this is basically the end of the video, but like I said, I'm just going to read it off. You have Malika being a 5-star Light Breaker, Homoda is a 5-star Dark Attacker, Mami is a 5-star Forest, we don't know. She's not in the pre-release version, and because she's not in the pre-release version, we didn't actually see what type she is, like what role she is. But we saw her element in other screenshots already, but we don't know her type. Sayaka is Aqua, we don't know her type, and Kyoko is 5-star Forest Flame, we don't know her role either. Then we have Iroha being a 5-star Breaker. Then we have Yacho being a 5-star Aqua Attacker. We have Tsuruno being a Buffer. She might be really good, actually. Like, 5-star supports are usually pretty darn good, and it seems like so far she's the only support in the 5-star pool. Like, this is the high rarity bracket up here. And she can apparently buff the crit rate of the entire team as well as the attack of the entire team, which may be pretty darn powerful. So she may be like the best support in the game for at least the first 3 weeks of the game's release, until like someone more powerful comes along, who knows. And then we have Felicia, who is a 5-star debuffer. She seems to excel, by the way, in stacking defense downs, as well as she can stun an enemy. So that's like one screenshot that showed her like use her Kyoko on an enemy, and then that enemy is set like unconscious on the enemy. So it seems like she can like stun an enemy with her Kyoko. Then we have Sanu, who is a 5-star defender. We have Ren, who, like we said earlier, is a 5-star debuffer. I think she's void type, actually. I think we've seen in the video that she's void type, which is interesting. And then we have Oriko, who is a 5-star attacker. We've not really seen much of her, sadly. And Kirika, who is a 5-star defender, dark type. We've seen her in one of the battles, and in that battle, everyone on the team had a shield gauge. So it seems like that Kirika is able to give a barrier buff to the entire team to absorb some damage. That seems to be the case. Something that Kokoro can also do. And then we have the low rarity bracket right here. In the low rarity bracket, we have, by the way, every single character, it seems, that is in the low rarity bracket has a 3-star and 4-star version, as I said earlier, but we haven't really seen that many in all of the reviews, so I've only written down those that we've actually seen, right? For example, for Karin, we've only seen her 4-star Firebreaker version. I don't know what her 3-star version is. Maybe she doesn't have one, but I assume all of these do have a 3-star and 4-star, so we don't know what her 3-star version is. So I've not written it down here, because we don't know. Asuka is a 4-star Aqua Attacker, same as in Magia Record. Nanaka is a 4-star Forest Attacker. She was Aqua in a Magia Record, and I'm gonna say it makes more sense for her to be Forest because she's themed around flowers. She throws flowers around in her attack animations. She owns a flower arranging school. Why was she Aqua in Magia Record? I don't know. It makes more sense for her to be Forest. Leila, who might be a really good healer. She is a 4-star fire healer. So I said earlier that Yuma is kind of boring. I haven't really seen Rayla do much stuff in game, but maybe she's more interesting. Maybe Rayla is actually like really cool. We don't know. So it's gonna be a toss-up between Yuma and Rayla, but Rayla might, I assume Rayla's maybe better because Rayla seems rather because Yuma is so boring. Maybe Rayla's gonna be better. Is my idea at least. Then we have Mito with a 4-star breaker. She seems to be really good at AoE. Like there's one screenshot of her which you just use a big AoE attack. Maybe she's good at AoE. We have Kokoro, who is a 3-star light defender, and on 4-star it's also a light defender because it's just not very flexible, I guess. I guess you can just do only one thing. And then Himika, who's a 4-star fire debuffer. We have Hazuki with a 4-star light buffer. Like I said, she is Bronya basically from Star Rail, where she can forward another character's turn up the turn order, so might be really, really good. Then we have Ayame as a 4-star debuffer. Masara, who is a 3-star light attacker, but on 4-star is a void attacker. We have Rika, who is a 3-star fire attacker, but on 4-star is a flame buffer. It's gonna be interesting. I want to see if Rika actually works well together with Ren. So we know that generally, since Ren and Rika are girlfriends, they just are. I don't know if that means that they are gonna be working well together. So it would be interesting to see if Rika's kid buffs Ren's kid somehow really well. We're gonna be able to see that. Rico, who's a 4-star buffer, light buffer, and then we have Ashley, who's a 4-star void breaker. We've seen her 3-star version in the gacha earlier, but it's just her image, and it doesn't show her element or her role, so we don't know. But we've seen at least her image in the gacha, in that one gacha screenshot, so I guess. Then we have Kush, who is a 4-star dark attacker. We have Yuma, who is, like I said, is the 4-star forest healer. Natsuki, who is a 3-star aqua buffer. I assume her 4-star is also going to be a buffer. Probably also aqua type, not entirely certain. But I assume she's also going to be a 4-star buffer because she's a cheerleader. What other thing would she do? Then we have Kaku, who is a 3-star, like I said, forest attacker. But I assume her 4-star is going to be either a healer or an attacker or a buffer, because that's just the kind of character that Kako is. I cannot picture Kako as an attacker, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, I assume her 4-star version is like her actual version. So it's probably a healer or buffer. And then Konoha, who is a 3-star aqua healer. Healer is interesting. I assume she might also be a buffer or a breaker or an attacker, because I assume she would be more offensively oriented on her 4-star. We're gonna have to take a look at that. And then there's some characters. The Kamore Triangle was also not in the pre-release build, so no one was able to pull them. And unlike like Mami, Sayaka, and Kyoko, there's also no pre-release images that show their element. So we also don't even know their element, sadly. And then there's 3 other characters that we know are probably in the game. Like, we saw Meiyue in the gacha, I think, and Hana in the gacha. But because they're just images, we don't actually know what role or element they are. So we don't know their role or element. And Seika appears nowhere. Not even in gacha screenshots, nor in any of the gameplay screenshots, not in any menu. She just doesn't appear anywhere. She's part of the big image that shows the pre-release characters. So I assume she's in the game. And it's just a big coincidence that none of the reviewers encountered her, which is possible, right? A lot of the reviewers seem to use the exact same characters, so they didn't try to go that crazy between each other. So yeah, it's possible that none of them just happened to use a Seika, it seems like. But yeah, that is basically it. I'm puckered out. Oh my god. That was it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.